Nationwide has an office complex here, part of the Nationwide organization that houses Allied Insurance, Nationwide Agribusiness, Nationwide Advantage Mortgage Company. We are fortunate to have about 4,500 employees here, associates in Central Iowa, and you can see some of those folks here today. It's our goal as part of our process to have all of the presidential candidates join us at some time during the campaign. And today we welcome Congressman Ron Paul, who is representing Texas's 14th district in the United States House of Representatives. Outside of politics, Congressman Ron Paul is a physician specializing in obstetrics and gynecology and served as a flight surgeon in the U.S. Air Force from 1965 to 1976. Ron Paul earned a BA degree from Gettysburg College in 1957 and a medical degree from Duke University in 1961. Dr. Paul is married to his wife Carol, and they have 5 children, including a U.S. Senator, Rand Paul, who represents the state of Kentucky. Please join me in welcoming Congressman Ron Paul. And let me also say this. Dr. Paul is a nationwide policyholder.
Fascinated with the study of economics in the 1960s. No mic? I did it. Let's see. It is green. Are you able to hear in the back? How about that? Is that any better?
That's better. That's better.
Huh?
That's good.
Better, maybe I can try the handheld mic. You hear me back, David?
Not very well.
How's that?
There you go.
That's good. This would all. Okay, we'll try that. Very good. Where was I? Getting my education. Now, in the 1960s, as I was finishing medical school and spent time in the Air Force, doing my residency, I came across a school of economic thought called Austrian economics, and I became fascinated with it because they had made some predictions back at that time that came to be exactly true. Because at that time we had a monetary system that was still based on gold. It didn't make any sense because they didn't live up to the promises of a gold standard. The government spent too much money; they just printed the money, and it was predicted in the 1960s that the whole thing would fall apart. In 1971, that's exactly what happened, and the last link of our dollar to gold collapsed. And I became convinced that that would usher in an age of big spending, big government, doing things we should be doing, and it would end up in a bad financial crisis. I think that is exactly what has happened. And the reason why this is so important, we talk a lot about taxes, and that's important, but we don't understand the connection between spending and our monetary system. And very few people are concerned about the monetary system. More so now than it was 4 years ago, because with the collapse of the financial bubble in 2008, a lot of people have been paying more attention. We're getting a lot more attention about auditing the Fed and finding out what the Fed had been doing. For instance, it was discovered after a very difficult time getting the information. We found out that the Congress, of course, that was more open. Congress spent $1 trillion bailing out certain companies and banks, and it really hasn't resolved the crisis. The Federal Reserve was involved with $15 trillion that they just create money out of thin air, and they won't tell you, the people, because they won't tell the Congress what's happened, so they have no oversight. So court cases were filed, and we passed some legislation. We still don't get all the information. But of that $15 trillion that they passed out to bail out the various special interests, $5 trillion of it went to overseas. But those procedures are still in place, and believe me, they're lining up right now. There are plenty of plans for us to be involved, whether it's the IMF, which is direct taxpayers' money, as well as our Federal Reserve. Even this week, when Bernanke held his press conference, he was standing ready to do whatever is necessary to prop up the system. And the argument always is, you can't allow the system to collapse because it would hurt everybody. But the whole thing is the bailout helped certain individuals, but it hurt a lot of people too. Unemployment went up, and the people who were supposed to, all these programs, the Easy Credit and the Community Reinvestment Act was supposed to help make sure everybody had a house. Guess what? They lost their houses, house prices crashed, and they didn't have jobs. So the whole system doesn't work. So with this conviction of how the monetary system is tied to spending, then it dawned on me that if we were to live within our means and live within the Constitution, we wouldn't have the foreign policy we have, and we wouldn't have the entitlement system that we have today. So the banking system facilitates those individuals in Washington who like to spend money. And unfortunately, both sides of the aisle like to spend money, because Republican or Democrat, if you spend money and it looks like you're bringing something back to the people, it's a good way to get reelected. And it works for a while, but eventually it ends up in a calamity. The market always wants to correct excessive spending and excessive debt and malinvestment. That's what recessions are all about. And for the most part, since the early 1970s, by spending more money and inflating the currency, it tended to hold the corrections in place, but it actually created a bigger and bigger bubble. And that bubble started to leak pretty significantly in the year 2000. We've been going downhill nationally since the year 2000 because we've had no new jobs, net new jobs. We have 30 million new people in this country. Real unemployment is probably 20%. So the system really hasn't worked, but the spending continues. And now we have faced, especially in the year 2008, that the financial bubble really burst. And now what are the tools that they've been using to take care of recessions for the last 4 years? Spending and printing money. Inflate the currency, make interest rates artificially low, spend money, and believing this will stimulate and recover. That is a Keynesian liberal economic approach, and it doesn't work anymore. Interest rates are zero. Where can they go? I mean, the debt now is deficit is 1.6 trillion. The national debt is 15 trillion. Now, this week is a historic week because it's the first time in our history that the national debt went over our total GDP. Of all the wealth in this country, now we have more debt. That's never happened even in World War II. That wasn't the case. That means it's very, very serious. The problem, though, has been that the appetite for government has been greater than the responsibility for paying for it. Also, the appetite for government is not related to anything in the Constitution, because the Constitution was written to limit this federal government especially. And it was there to do a few things. Article 1, Section 8 tells us what we're going to do. But today, we totally ignore it. Just think how long we've had federal government involved in education. So, good many years. And Republicans don't like the Department of Education. Once we had it in our platform to get rid of the Department of Education. But when we finally had the presidency in the House and Senate, we doubled the size of the Department of Education. So we're not getting anywhere. And we regulate too. Regulations are devastating to marketplaces. So the Congress just passed, Dodd-Frank. This is very devastating. It's going to cost, it's estimated it'll cost business people $1 trillion. But Sarbanes-Oxley, which was a consequence of the collapse of Enron, passed by the Republicans, it's costing us $1 trillion too. Then they wonder why the country isn't healthy for jobs, why they move overseas. There was a time when just high labor costs and union wages pushed some people out of business in the car business and the steel business and others, and they could move south. But right now the conditions are so bad that they're moving offshore. And this has been going on. A lot of people, Republicans especially, would like to say, well, it's all Obama's fault. He didn't do anything to help. and he's made it worse, but it's been going on a long time. It's connected to the people's appetite for government. So we could blame the president, we could blame the courts, we could blame the Congress, but we could also just politicize it. But the whole thing is, it's been going on for a long, long time because we have become soft in thinking that deficits don't matter. Both liberals and conservatives have made that comment. Deficits don't really matter, but they do matter, and that's what we're facing. But we need, as a people, to decide one way or the other what the role of government ought to be. And this is more or less what the founders of this country asked. They, when they were annoyed a bit with the king and all the regulations and the taxes, they said, well, really, what should the government be for? Unfortunately, those individuals that brought about the revolution in our Constitution had some precise beliefs and good beliefs about property rights and contracts and limited government. They had a precise belief, especially about going to war. The king would go to war and tax the people and station military troops in the homes, and they didn't like that. But today, we don't obey the Constitution. We're supposed to only go to war if there's a declaration of war. But since World War II, we haven't once declared war. And in my lifetime, look how many times that we've been in war. I was drafted in the 60s. I was in the service